Hello and welcome. This is the launch of the podcast that we have decided to call Wisemind Fireside-chats, Unveiling Inner Wisdom. But as one of our guests, Asir, has pointed out, things will always be abbreviated. So rather than be left with whatever you guys decide to call it, we've decided that that can be abbreviated to Wi-Fi chats. So welcome, hello. Co-hosting and leading the podcast is Gabby Sheshlock, who will be no stranger to any of you. And our guests today are Erica Naidoo and Asia K. What we're going to talk about is part of the title. How do we unveil inner wisdom? And what does that even mean? So I'm going to pass it over to Gabby. She can say hi to you all and give us some reflections on that while our guests have time to think.
Hello, everybody. And I'm really excited. Our podcast is launching. We talked about it quite a while. And what does it actually mean? Why do we even do the podcast? And I think the idea really is to talk in the podcast about this inner wisdom. It's important to me because nowadays there's so much information out there. There is so much advice out there. There are self-help books, and we get bombarded with all those ideas of other people, and we take them on board because we want to help ourselves. But is it even a wise choice? Are we still actually in a good space when we start to take 5-step programs from other people to solve our own lives and problems? What is it about our own experiences and our own wisdom we can reflect on and actually build on our lives rather than take all this advice in from outside? And I think this is why it's so important for me personally, because I'll give you an example to make it more tangible. For a while, everybody was talking about this book, The 5 a.m. Club. Get up at 5 and your life will be solved because everything will be perfect. And yes, for many people, it is the perfect solution because they're early birds, they love getting up early, and they're fired up in the morning. Now, try and track me out at 5 a.m. in the morning. You will have a little demon on your hand, and I can promise you it will not work. I do my best work sometimes 9 o'clock to midnight, where I really go in, work deep, create even workshops. That's me, that suits me. And I think that's what it is about for me. Having podcasts just to bring out ideas and then being able to reflect on it. Okay, does that work for me? What's my experience? What is me? That's really what is me, which helps me in my own life towards my own solutions and goals. Yeah.
Thanks, Gabby. And I know that one of us is a regular 5 a.m. club member. It's definitely not me. I'm with your side of the clock, Gabby. So Erica, come and say hello and tell us why the 5 a.m. club works for you.
Hello, good morning. It's actually 7 a.m. for me right now, but I've been up since 5:30 a.m. today, and today's Saturday. So I have choice to stay in bed if I wanted to today, but somehow here I am up. 5 a.m. works for me because it's quiet. It's quiet and there's nobody else around who possibly could need anything from me, right? So that is why I find it to be my time. There's space for me to move about the cabin. There's nobody else that I have to contend with or attend to except for me and the things that I want to get done or need to get done, or simply just want to sit and enjoy listening to the birds without feeling interrupted. So I'm very productive in the morning. Then I hit a little bit of a in the midday, and then sometimes, depending on the day, I can get some energy later at night. But definitely the morning is more production for me. And I know that just because I know what works for me. Going back to what Gabby said about knowing what works for you and that inner wisdom. I think you only build that by building trust in yourself, right? You have to be able to trust yourself to know that you are intuitively It's all about intuition for me, going to do what serves you best. And when we look outwards to all those, 5 steps and self-help books, it's just focusing externally on something that we already know internally. So that answer your question?
It does, thank you. I couldn't have strung that together at 7:30. I'm not sure I could paraphrase it accurately now at just gone 12. But something that you and Gabby have both mentioned there is having the ability to be on your own, having time to yourself, which suggests that in order to be able to listen to that inner voice, there is a requirement for some kind of stillness. And you've both identified which parts of the day work best for you. So, Asia, come say hello. What time of the day works best for you? Do you even hear the inner voice of wisdom?
That's 2 very separate questions, I would suggest. Hello. In my experience, I've tried both. I've tried waking up early for the sake of joining the club, and I haven't tried, it was natural for me to work late nights. I suggest the essence of the joy of not being bothered is present both in 5 a.m. and 2 a.m. clubs. I did enjoy the most these late night coding sessions solely because nobody was bothering me from my work, and I kind of learned that late night means productivity. What I also found interesting is that lately I've been doing quite the opposite, and I've been trying to tackle the in the spirit of eat the frog principle, tackling most tenacious tasks in the morning while I still have this, I'm gonna do a lot of stuff today. And it has been working for me, but what is the most interesting is that I had this limiting belief that I'm only productive at night because I'm an engineer and my theme in the environment is dark, and I'm supposed to sit in the dark and do all that stuff. So sitting in a room full of light while their birds are singing and doing something coding related felt quite unnatural. And somehow, without a conscious thought, I decided, what if I challenge myself and learn and allow myself to be productive in an unusual time for that? You caught me in the middle of it. When you texted, come join the podcast, I was like, phew. And I can't say I'm the most productive myself now, but I do enjoy this flexibility and allowing myself to explore and not confining myself into these frames that I'm an owl, so I'm supposed to wake up whenever. It's about learning to listen to your body, to your mind, to your state, and especially not confining yourself in any of the labels, because on some days you can be as productive as you can in the morning, sometimes in the evening, sometimes neither. So if you're allowing yourself, just listening to your body while still knowing that if you have to, you can discipline yourself into doing it at any time. But if you have a choice, if you have an option of this freedom, why not explore it in a fluid form? I see you nodding. That's nice.
I find it so interesting that just no matter the time of day, right? Like somehow we're talking about why inner wisdom and what we know works for us and productivity. But for me, what I'm hearing, the common thread is that early morning, late at night, there's a common theme of quiet, stillness, nobody's needing me other than me kind of thing. So I think just coming back to the topic here of like knowing your inner wisdom, it's blaringly obvious to me that we all know we need some time for ourselves to be able to focus in and be still on whatever it is that we want to be doing. It's interesting.
Interesting as well is that we each are kind of in our best spaces. and that's one of the beauties of being able to connect with people as we do globally, because you're there at your happy time, Erica. We've literally pulled Asia from whatever, I don't even want to know, mind-boggling feat she was coding, and Gabby and I are quite happy in the middle of our day, having walked our dogs. Mine made a little guest appearance wandering across behind me. I apologize for her lack of manners. But she's a much loved member of our little group. So I agree that there's that peace and stillness part. And for me, actually, on those occasions, like at the moment when we've got more light in the Northern Hemisphere, being awake late, because I am a bit of a later person, and then going out as dawn is breaking, it's the waking up to see the dawn breaking that I struggle with. But going out in that peace of nature and just knowing, and something that we've all talked about is this knowing. So the next question for me is, what is that knowing? Where does it come from? And how do you find that intuition, which is this inner wisdom? So whoever wants to tackle that can unmute and go for it.
You know what, for me, that comes back to the quietness we all talked about, because I had the same experience there like Erica. I thought it's interesting that when we think of inner wisdom and reflecting and intuition, that we automatically all thought of peace, quiet, me time, where we can sit back. And I'm wondering, because I'm asking the questions a lot lately, when have you done the last time purposefully nothing? Because we are so engrossed in busyness all day long and to-do lists. It's almost like we draw our self-worth from being able to say, oh, I have a full program from 6 a.m. in the morning till 11 p.m. in the night. Sometimes I even have the feeling when it comes to exercises like yoga or meditation, sometimes people say to me, oh no, I have to go, at 6 o'clock I have a yoga class, right? And they're almost stressed out going to a yoga class. So the question is to be able to even touch into our inner wisdom and let it really talk and reflect on it is the first point, the stillness, where we allow ourselves to step away from the busyness. Because there was some research that we get most creative if we even sit down for 15 minutes and just do nothing, literally nothing. Not purposely meditating on it, just literally nothing. Sit on a bench, look out, do nothing. How often do we allow us to do that? And is it really necessary to actually even be able to start tapping into it?
You know, this is I feel like my intuition personally, for me, I'm constantly in this everyday engagement with wanting to hear my intuition, because I feel like I live my life with my intuition, really. And sometimes it's just automatic, where I just do what I feel like I'm supposed to be doing. There's not a lot of cognitive thought. Like, I'm not even aware that I'm actually thinking through what I'm doing. I naturally know what I'm wanting to be doing. But there are other times where I think that I'm disconnected from it, right? But the more that I engage in this conversation with myself, the more I'm realizing my intuition is always talking. It is always talking. It's not a matter of if it's talking, it's how willing am I to actually hear what's being said. That's the key for me, because it's like always running in the background. It's one of those programs that's just always there. And so when things come easy and naturally to me, I'm just flowing through. And that's my intuition, really, because I'm not thinking about it. When I'm in a struggle or a conflict or like putting a block in front of myself, that's me unwilling to listen to my intuition. This is what I'm learning. I just think it's always there. It's always there. And it gets stronger the closer you become to doing the inner trusting and loving of yourself and getting true in yourself, the louder it is, and the less work it is really to live your life. This is what I'm coming to lately. This is what my evidence is pointing towards.
I like that. Maybe the stillness is us giving us the opportunity to actually listen to ourselves. And I like the idea that even when we're in work, even if we're able to take just 3 minutes out and say, oh, hold on, what's happening, and listening to your inner voice, to actually tap in. And the next question then beckons, do we tend to be so busy not to have to listen to ourselves?
Asia.
I was just thinking how it's convenient to allow yourself to be still when it's 4 a.m. and there is literally no one to bother you, or 2 p.m. or whatever the time of day for you is. And I was thinking of my initial frustration with meditation, how it's being portrayed by those monks in mountains. And I was this pissed off girl who was like, I could do meditation there. I'm here and everybody's bothering me. And there is sounds, there are sirens, there is everything. Like, how am I supposed to meditate here? And I came to a realization that it's less about the environment. It is important, but I'm also thinking, when Gabby is talking about this state of stillness and doing nothing, for me personally, the key aspect of it would be less in finding the environment or circumstances or good atmosphere around me to be still, but rather in the permission to just stop. So I know I'm consciously pushing myself to do everything at once, and this is my personal struggle to learn how to moderate that. But the key aspect in that doesn't sit with me in terms of I'm still yet to learn is to allow myself, to give myself that permission to just do nothing, instead of just forcing myself to do nothing and just sitting through that for 15 minutes and then be done with it. Just allowing it. It's difficult to say, for me at least, just to do nothing. And then what? Like, how do I know I was being productive doing nothing? Like, how do I measure my nothingness? Like, what are the metrics? How do I know I succeeded at doing nothing? You know what I mean? So it's interesting key in that contradiction towards your personal limited belief that you have to keep going all of the time.
I'm just going to invite in another guest. This is Brett Corcoran joining us from New York. If he's there. Welcome, Brett, if you can hear us.
What's going on?
We are just discussing what it means to unveil our inner wisdom. And Asia was just reflecting on the importance of actually allowing that, not looking at metrics, not measuring how productive she was, which sent me off on a complete like, yes, maybe the first 2 minutes after your 3 minutes of being purposefully nothing is actually measuring the nothingness that you achieved. So how do you find the concept of your inner wisdom, and is it something that you are able to find, to connect with, and do you allow it into your life?
Great question. I sure hope I let it into my life. That's a definite, right? oh my God, I think I want to say I'm working with this, and because I've had a lot of situations come to me lately that have been testing me, and I don't catch them when they first arrive. So it's kind of I go through the motions from the old place, and it's not. It's like I needed time to process, and I didn't get to process what's going on. So when they actually pop up and they come in like that, it's at the moment still, I'd say, some old parts playing their roles where I'm looking to step into that place and take my power back from whoever gave me ways of being or whatever it was that played out in my past, and actually being present in that time to respond with and from the person that I am today. So there's a real big piece, and I've been having a lot of situations lately, man. So great question, great question. And it just comes to that point where um, it is my working, right? And I'm working on it. And I got people that I
Before you arrived, we mentioned that there are ways that we find of working with our inner wisdom. Could be being up late, early, being out in nature, but there is a common theme that we find time to ourselves when we're most in connection with that inner wisdom, inner knowing. So the question is, how do you connect with yours, which you said at the outset you hoped you were letting in?
um that's the unsure piece. Like I know when I'm out on the motorcycle and I'm just riding, I have a lot of different things and I have space to process, and that gives me that, and being in nature. Being in nature is great. Just going for a walk in the woods or a nice trail, building a fire, definitely building a fire. Um, yeah, yeah, I'd say the motorcycle and building a fire are my two go-tos. Um, and it's great because building a fire, I love bringing people around it so they get to experience that. Whatever it is for me, maybe they can experience the same. And I'll pose certain questions or I'll say certain things, and usually people that are close to me or that do know me, they will play along. Like I'll ask, even if it's something like now and they're not used to me asking a question, they'd be like, and they'd pause and they would think about it and they would actually answer, you know, as best as they can, right? And they might laugh at it and be like, I gotta think more, whatever it is. Um, so, uh, yeah, I've done a couple cool things around the fire actually. And I had some friends really have some experiences, and just kind of wander around my yard after, and come back to the fire. It was just some good things. Yeah.
You weren't here at the outset when we mentioned the name that we'd come to for the podcast, and as he has just mentioned in the chat, Wisemind Fireside-chats for Unveiling Inner Wisdom. So, having come in a very figurative way, and now then literally led us to Fireside Chats, what question might you pose now as we are in a circle around the fire?
I don't know. Usually I'm sitting around the fire, and that's where the question evokes from. You know, as I'm sitting there, it gives my mind the space. There you go. You guys are funny.
So one question that comes up to me for this is, why are we looking? Yeah, we're asking ourselves how we connect with this inner wisdom, or how we unveil the inner wisdom, which is certainly a useful idea to have for each of us as an individual, and anyone that's listening. But for what purpose are we seeking this inner wisdom? And I leave that open to the floor.
To make the decisions that are going to best serve me. I think that's when I seek it out the most. I also seek it out when I'm processing through any kind of challenges that I might be having, right? To sort of like a check myself kind of thing. Is this really, really, really something that's upsetting to me, or is this my mind making me feel like I should be upset? So I will refer to it. And if I have that nagging feeling deep in my belly, like in my gut, then I know, no, this is legit. This is something that I need to speak on or figure out how to move through. If that eventually go, and I give it time, it's not an immediate process for me personally. I have to allow it some time and space to continue talking so that I can tell the difference.
Something that we don't actually have a lot of. It's a common complaint in modern life, isn't it? No time, no time, no time. And yet, how do we access it? In a place of peace and stillness for us. Why do we want it? Because it's most revealing of what's correct for us. And how does it come? It's not always in an instant flash of inspiration. It might take sitting around a fire, going for a motorbike ride, going for a walk. And it seems that inner wisdom is most effective for us as individuals. And yet it's hard to find and create the space and place for it.
I don't want to interrupt you, but this is why I said earlier that I feel like it's always talking for me, because in the busyness of life, I don't need to have, because there are days that I might not find the time to just be quiet and whatever. So it's always on. It's just always talking, and I allow it to do that, whether I give it the set time or not. And I love the idea of knowing that it's always with me. Like I could take it with me. It's not like I have to be home. It's just always hanging out with me. So I kind of like that idea that it's just always with me.
Yeah, and what I find interesting now from the conversation we had, looking back at everything, that it's again our own choice how we connect with that wisdom, and we have quite different ways. And I love what Ashia said, to actually just permit us to do so. And it was funny, the reaction. I cannot sit down for 15 minutes because how do I measure I was productive? That's already getting out of the wise mind or the inner intuition already again. Because how do you even measure your inner wisdom? It's not something you can measure. You may know you're getting there when you get the outcomes in your life you want to have, but it's an ongoing process. And there is no end goal. As long as we are alive, as long as things are happening to us, as long as we are processing, as long as we have to tap into this inner wisdom all the time, and it can change quite a lot depending on our life circumstances.
For me, I know I'm not listening to my intuition if it's taking me a long time to decide what I'm doing. My intuition is pretty much, oh no, I know that this is what I'm supposed to do, and that's just it. Or I know I'm not supposed to be in this room because I don't like the way it feels, or whatever. If I'm struggling or I can't come to a decision, I immediately know my intuition has yet to actually speak or has yet to be heard by me.
Asya.
I'm thinking of your question, for what purpose are we even searching? And my personal best guess would be to measure / evaluate / sense whether you're being true to yourself. By the risk of using a list of buzzwords such as authentic and all that kind of stuff, just differentiating from behavior, thoughts, and feelings you're experiencing due to external stimuli, or is that something that's true to you? Is that something that your inner whatever is telling you? And for me, that, funny enough, that only recently has become a challenge. Before, I was always right and I was pretty content with the way I was. Not saying that was a good way to be, just it didn't bother me to even consider self-reflecting and assessing where I'm at. But the more I learned, the more I realized how little of my original thoughts I have, how little, again, buzzwords, but authentic and congruent, but how little of what I'm doing and what I'm thinking is actually mine. And that still hurts, that realization, but at least it paves the new path of that exploration and rigid differentiation for purposes and reasons for doing something due to external factors in comparison to your true innate calling and purpose and beliefs. That's one thing. I'll come back to you with another thought.
You put me in mind of the UB40 song, Higher Ground. The more I know, the less I learn, or the more I learn, the less I know, the more I want to look around. And I think that's part of this inner wisdom. We all have it. We can all tap into it in various ways, some easier than others. But if we listen, there's always more to ask, more to ponder, more to open ourselves up to. So, Brett, coming back to you. Oh, I see. Did you have your second? Go on.
Thank you for bringing that back to me. The idea was that having that, you asked, how do we know if we have inner wisdom, or if it's there, or if it's working, or if it's functioning? And to connect the previous conversation with this idea, I would suggest the presence of inner wisdom can be measured by the existence of those self-reflecting processes. If you're capable of, I wouldn't say constantly, but from time to time, evaluating where you are, where you're going, what you're doing, how aligned you are with your values and thoughts and desires, that would be one of characteristics of, in my personal point of view, of presence of that inner wisdom. If you're thinking of that, if you're reflecting, it means that to some extent it's there. And if not, what do we do then? That would be my question.
We'll pin that question just while I ask Brett for his response, if he has one, to for what purpose are we accessing this inner wisdom?
What purpose are we Inner wisdom. I guess to live our fullest lives and connect to the people on a deep level, to of acceptance, right, of each other. So just connecting on that deeper level of accepting, supporting, and moving through our regular, mundane, right, routines. If we're not aware and we're just moving through life and just doing things, then we're missing out on the connection that I believe we should be experiencing. Another should, right? But I think it's important that we have these connections and these deeper experiences, so that in moving through life, you have the people you know that you're supporting and supporting you, and the people to go to in your hard times. I think if we had more connection like that, there'd be less people in such hard places if they were aware of the people in their lives that were really there, and that they're not alone, right? So there's a really big piece there, that if we go there and we experience it with people, then those are our go-to people that we can be whatever we are, share whatever emotion we have, and they'll just listen. Or instead of just throwing responses out, they would ask, right? Because they feel that you're in that spot. So it's just allowing you and them to be in the space of knowing, how can I support you? And once you're in that space enough, then you're going to know what they need is support. That won't be a question anymore. So once you're there and experiencing that level of inner wisdom and knowing what people need, then that question tends to sit on the side, because you already learned what each person needs. And you may ask it again just to verify, hey, look, I may usually do X, Y, Z, but I feel like something different is up right now, and I just want to clarify how it is that I can support you. And they may step into that, or they may, whatever it is. It's just giving them that opportunity to know that I'm there for you, right? And it's really seeing what they need, because maybe they don't want you saying anything. Maybe they just want to talk and get it all out. Well, I think that's something important that we need to know. So,
I think it's like a beautiful connection. That connection seems to be the theme here, but to be able to use your inner wisdom requires deep connection with yourself, right? And it's only until you have that deep connection with yourself that you can offer that to somebody else fully, right? So your intuition comes into play, your inner wisdom comes in there to play as well in building connection, because you're building it with yourself to build that wisdom, right? And then that wisdom and connection is what you offer to other people. So it's just funny the way it feeds into each other. But as you guys were talking, a whole nother thing came to me about how for me personally, how do you know if your intuition is leading you or not, or working or not, right? And for me, it's a definite mind, like it's a body connection. It's in my body. So if I'm feeling a discomfort, like a physical sort of pain reaction, I know, okay, my intuition is probably trying to scream at me that something isn't right. And I'm just not either willing to hear it, or can't hear it, or am blocking myself from listening to it. It's going to cause me physical pain. And I have this idea that life is challenging. Life is a struggle, right? There's nowhere written that we're not going to struggle, that life is just going to be easy. So the struggle is part of life. However, we don't need to suffer through it, right? So when you don't listen to your intuition, you are suffering. That's what I know to be true, because it causes me pain when I'm not. And that's my first inclination okay, I'm not aligned here. I'm not listening to something because I'm feeling stress in my stomach. I'm feeling tense. I'm feeling irritated. Like it's just, I'm not aligned. Let me tap in to my intuition and maybe at least allow it to talk to me. I might not be willing to do what it tells me right now, but I need to listen to it so that my life doesn't have to be a suffering kind of life. I can still struggle and deal with the challenges that are going to help me to grow, but I don't have to be in pain while I'm doing it. That's my personal take on how I operate with my intuition.
Yeah, I really like that. And it brings in for me my purpose. My purpose really is at this stage of my life just to have peace. And peace doesn't mean that I sit around doing nothing or not in a kind of Zen way of peace, but being aligned with what I'm doing. And the minute I'm in peace, it doesn't matter what life throws at me. You know, when we talk about locus of control, even when things come up from outside, they don't face me. I go like, okay, this has happened now. All right, what's the solution? And I work toward that solution. And I'm getting the outcomes. And it's coming from this kind of state of peace. I think we often think peace means we're like a Buddhist monk sitting somewhere meditating. But for me, peace is just simple being in a space where I can face anything which comes up for me without getting stressed or panicked or, you know, in a state where I can't handle it. So that's for me the peace. And I think that's my purpose for actually going on a journey of inner wisdom.
So to concisely answer the question of your purpose in tapping into your intuition, for me, after listening to you, Gabby, my purpose is freedom. That's it. In a nutshell, I tap in and am eager to allow it to lead me so I can get to this place of freedom, you know, of time, of energy, of my emotions, you know, whatever. It's just freedom to choose to do what I want in a way that serves me. That's my answer. Final answer.
We'll lock that one in. You know, back in January, when some of us met up with Kane and Karen in Scotland, one of the pearls of wisdom that I received was let peace be your umpire, because we can find states of flow where we are working at our best, whether that be the night owl or the early morning lark. We can find the locations that serve us and that work and bring alignment to our goals and the people and the groups and the collaborations that we want to work with. And by acknowledging that we do have a voice other than that inner critic that is helpful and can guide us, we're able to find that place and space of letting peace be the umpire. And as Gabby said right at the outset, there's a ton of books that will help us find our element, find flow, find what works for us, whether it be the 5 a.m. club or the midnight club. But actually finding people that you can work with, be connected with, be in flow with, I think that's one of these purposes. It enables us to have conversations like this. It enables us to bring these things to other people.
So final thoughts on this podcast as a whole, or specific to the question of what do we do if we can't tap in?
We're going to go with that question to the group. So your final thought on the conversation.
Okay, so my final thoughts in general are what I know to be true about intuition and inner wisdom is that it'll never steer you wrong. It's always got your best interest at its forefront. So because of that, it feels scary to trust it, right? It's almost like, well, wait a minute. What do you mean? There's something that I can't see or touch or feel, and I just have to believe in that it has my best interest at its forefront. somewhere along the way, we were taught to not trust ourselves. Somebody told us and taught us that we can't be trusted in making decisions for ourselves, or in however it came to be, directly or indirectly. And allowing your inner wisdom to show up in its full power is completely obliterating that teaching, right? So it's time for us to take that back and learn to, I'm fully equipped with everything I need to know to steer me where I need to go. I just need to trust it and allow it to exist. My inner wisdom told me to accept the invitation to be on this podcast today. And again, it did not steer me wrong. So I am happy to trust it and just not work so hard to have to listen to it, because it's always there.
I think it was Glenn Ford. I might need to correct the name later on, but he did a longitudinal study of genius, starting with, I think they were 4-year-olds. And at that age, well into the 90% of children are recognizably genius. By the time they reach adulthood, 25 and older, the number of, or the percentage of genius is down to around about 3 or 4%. And the biggest single drop at that any point in that study is at the end of mainstream education, where they've just gone off the Seneca cliff, as it were, of ability to be genius. Gabby, this has been our first Wi-Fi chat. What would you like to wrap it up with, and final thoughts?
And my final thoughts really are that, yeah, we can sit at home and think about what we need and try and find our inner wisdom and let our inner wisdom talk. But how much more helpful is it to actually share our thoughts, get the insights and wisdom of other people, of their experiences, and talk about it? Because sometimes we are too much in our own heads, and that's why we go down rabbit holes we don't want to go down, because we cannot see a way out, or we think we're the only ones and are not even aware of that other people may have similar struggles. So to come together as a community talking about this is important, and that's probably why I'm thinking right now these fireside chats are helpful. And if we can do it in a way where we can get together and other people can join in, like we're going to do now, is absolutely brilliant. And it was a real fireside chat, wasn't it? My dog started barking. People had to go run off because something was happening. I had to close the window because all the neighbors are starting working. And it's just brilliant. And even with all these disturbances, because sometimes you think, oh, we can't do this, it needs to be perfect, we have the right microphone and the right lighting, and people have to be there in time, and then stop. Look how deep this conversation went. And maybe it goes deeper when we just feel we can chat to friends rather than try and be perfect, because then we start performing. And I did a lot on public speaking. That's where it goes usually wrong, when we think we have to perform when we speak rather than have a chat with everybody. That's my final thoughts.
Thank you very much. My final thought is very much along the line of yours, Gabby, which is, if we have a space in which we can bring our thoughts to be mulled over, to be shared with other people who have similar connection and who've taken on the path of wisdom and maturity, we get a wise mind even beyond listening to our own wise mind, and recognizing that the stories that we potentially tell ourselves are very different from that wise mind that we can tap into. So with no further ado, we will ask the others to consider Asia's question. If we recognize that the wise mind is a thing and we're not sure how we connect with our own, what should we do, and how can we approach that problem?